Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA front office show. We thought, Keith and I were just talking, we thought there wasn't a lot going on in the NBA, and then boom, 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 everything went nuts this morning. We've got all kinds of stuff to get into, including James Harden, some players the Rockets might be looking at, Calvin Booth trying to walk back his comments, which we talked about yesterday. And as bizarre as it is, a crazy, I never would have anticipated this turn in the Austin Reeves dating Taylor Swift rumors. Keith, this league, man, I don't know what else to say. Like, I would have never anticipated this going where it went. It's hilarious. And in my mind, this is the most bizarre thing we've seen since the DeAndre Jordan chair barricade incident from years back.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go through a number of years of stupid stories in the NBA, but that's why we love it. It's the dumbest, best league ever, right? It's just, I mean, there's just absolute nonsense that comes out with this league. We don't even need to do scheduled nonsense because we have actual like nonsense to talk about. So it's it's crazy. But we should probably start with a real basketball story.
Yes, we will kick things.
Then we'll get
into the nonsense at the end. We'll spare everybody from that. So if you don't care about the Austin Reeves and Taylor Swift rumor and where it all started, it is a crazy story. But we're going to put that at the end. That'll be our scheduled nonsense for the day.
Yeah.
Let's start off with this one, though, which maybe this is a little bit of nonsense too, frankly. But James Harden, it's a no-show for the 76ers. 76ers are in Philly. James Harden, according to our pal Jake Fisher, he's in Houston. So not ideal, but then does this really change anything, Keith? I mean, to me, this just kind of keeps the status quo, but it does add a bit more of a spotlight back onto, like, if James Harden was just there and things were progressing normally, then maybe things would start to cool off a little bit. By him no showing, he's keeping the attention on what's happening here.
Yeah, it was last night, fairly late in the evening on the East Coast when I think it was Jake put out a piece that said pretty much there's nothing going on with the trade and everybody's prepared for Harden to be with Philadelphia to start the year. And then this morning there's reporting all over the place of, he's not even with the team. And now it's come out. He left the team on Sunday. He went through practice. They're obviously bad. They did training camp in Colorado, but now they've played games. They're back in their practice facilities in New Jersey. But he did his, I think, or Delaware, one of the two. But he did his practices and then has gone back to Houston. And now what's interesting is we don't know if Philly, when he missed that first day of training camp in Colorado, we may never know. Are they counting that as an excused absence, or did they kind of tag that as one of the 30 days? It's important to remember. I think a lot of people by now know there's the whole 30 days of withholding service. It's not a 30-day countdown that resets every time he shows up. It's 30 total days. So anytime between now and the end of his contract on June 30th, it's 30 days. If he refuses to show up and isn't there when he's supposed to be, they can count that towards it. So it's really messy. But to your kind of last part of your question there, I don't know that it changes anything. I don't know that what would this change for Philly? I don't know if Philly cares at all.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to trade him before. They still want to trade him. He wants to be traded, right? I mean, their goal isn't so much this team needs James Harden. It's this team needs really good players, and losing a really good player like James Harden sets us back in the championship pursuit. If we can get a player who we think can help us win a championship, who is of an equal talent level, who doesn't set us back in our pursuit of championship, goodbye James Harden. Like, that's where Philly is at, and perhaps rightfully so, given where things are at with Joel Embiid, right? I mean, you can't trade James Harden for nothing from the Clippers and satisfy Joel Embiid. He's not going to be happy with that. So it's an interesting standoff here. Woj had today that there's been little movement in any kind of trade. That the Clippers and the 76ers, they've talked, but both sides want what they want, and nobody is really budging there. So, like Jake reported, we probably do wind up with Harden on the 76ers to start the season.
I like the way you phrased that.
What?
On the 76ers, not
Yes.
playing for the
Not playing
76ers,
for the
because
76ers.
who knows what that'll look like, right? I think
Right.
we're in a position where the on the 76ers, yeah, 100%, but is he going to play? Yeah, that's a whole other story, right? And is he going to play or not
Well,
play because he's not there, so he can't play, or is he not going to play because they're like, no, you can just be on the bench. We don't want to, have you play. That becomes a whole other part of the story too.
right. So even if they get him to show, and maybe the 30-day clock is a factor here, but even if you get James Harden to show up, what version of James Harden are you getting?
Correct.
That's a big question as well for
Yep.
the 76ers. So this whole thing is a mess. Um, I at some point you would think maybe they see eye to eye on a deal, but right now both sides seem to be pretty dug it. Now, sometimes this is the kind of stuff that gets out when teams are trying to make a deal and just trying to reiterate their position and strengthen their bargaining position, but it seems like both these sides are really firmly entrenched in what they want to do and what they don't want to do. The Clippers, we've heard it forever. They don't want to move Terrence Mann in part of the deal. And the 76ers are like, going, come on, it's Terrence Mann. Are you kidding me? Just do this and get it done. Um, I don't know when this is ultimately going to end or how. I just don't know that there's much else James Harden can do short of like playing in a game and shooting right hand. He's a lefty shooting right-handed the entire game or something like that, and then they would just bench him. I don't know that there's much more James Harden can do to incentivize the 76ers to say, that's it, I'm done. We're just going to move you and get whatever we can get.
Yeah, I mean, the Sixers seem pretty well locked in on this is what we need to get. And we are not changing our minds. It's going to be this or nothing, whether that is we need, to your point, a player who keeps us in contention or assets we can flip for a player who keeps us in contention. I've said it a million times, so I won't go deep into it here. But the idea of getting such a player and maintaining cap flexibility into the summer, that always
Mhm.
seemed like a pipe dream. Like that just doesn't seem like a realistic thing that's going to happen. So I think we're in a spot with James Harden where, yeah, I don't know. I always wonder, right? We like to trace back who does it benefit for this to come out? Well, doesn't really benefit James Harden because he kind of looks like an idiot. Doesn't really benefit the Sixers because it's like, yeah, he's not even here.
Mhm.
Maybe the Clippers were the ones who put this out there of like, hey, he's not there. Like, you better come down on your asking price and
Right.
you'll get something done. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is the Sixers are like, hey, we're sick of this guy, and we're just gonna let you know, hey, he's not even here. Like
Right.
that's why you're not seeing him. That's why there's been no media availability or any of that stuff. So maybe it is Harden saying, yeah, I'm not going anymore. I'm done, with this. So I really don't know where to take this and what this all means. Like, I just think it's, continues to be super messy. My thing is, I'm the LA Clippers. I'm not up in my offer. Why? Clearly, they are the only serious bidder,
Mhm.
unless there's somebody that we have no expectations of jumping in here. So if you're the Clippers, like, I'm kind of holding firm. We're healthy right now. We're ready to go for the start of the season. We don't necessarily need to make this trade today. This trade will be here for months to come, and I'm just gonna kind of hold firm on what I've been offering if I'm the Clippers and Lawrence Frank and that front office, because I don't see any reason to up my offer.
Well, and I think that I mean, this is look. If this was James Harden of 5 years ago, obviously there would be many more teams that would be interested in making an offer. But this isn't James Harden from 5 years ago. So I think if you're the Clippers, you could look at this and say, this isn't a home run. Like this isn't a 100% foolproof, guaranteed. We do this and we're in the finals type
Yeah,
move. If it's James Harden a few years ago, yeah, it probably is. And then you do
sure.
go in. But again, there's other shooters and everything. But if you're the Clippers, you could look at this and say, and I guess this is kind of the key when we're looking at any type of deal. Can I live with letting this go? Can I
Yep.
live with letting this go if I don't pay this price? Am I okay with that? Or am I always going to look at that and say, man, I wish I had just paid a little bit more and gotten this thing done? I think that this is a deal with enough question marks about around it where if you're the Clippers, you can say, you know what? I'm okay if this doesn't get done.
And I think if you're Philly, I'm sitting there saying, all right, we'll talk to you around Christmas when
Yeah.
Paul George or Kawhi is out for a month with some kind of injury and you're
There
not
it
the
is.
team you thought you were going to be, and now maybe you will pay up. So I
Mhm.
see it from both sides. Why there's no reason
Absolutely.
to give and budge. That generally tends to be though where to the point you made before, both sides kind of come together, right? And it's like, all right, we're both being a little silly. We're asking too much. We're offering too little. Let's kind of meet more in the middle and let's go. But I don't know. Maybe this is turning into a Damian Lillard thing where it's I'm gonna hold my ground that unless they give me exactly what I want, I'm not trading him to the place where he
Mhm.
wants to go, simply because that's where he wants to be. Like we don't have any obligation to do that. The difference is we knew Damian Lillard was going to show up in Portland and still play
Yeah.
and be a good teammate and everything. Had he not been traded, James Harden clearly we're not there. So it's gonna continue to be a story and a mess. And I know people are tired of it, but every time there's even any kind of update like this, it's important that we cover it because we don't see holdouts like this in the NBA. Everything is
Mm-mm.
designed to not have situations like this in the NBA.
Yeah, this is not Le'Veon Bell from years
Yeah.
ago. This that's not what we're used to seeing in the NBA. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I guess James Harden could start putting out selfies from fast food drive-through lines on social media or something like that.
Right.
But other than that, I don't know where this
He
goes
could be
from
like, I'm
here.
going to threaten to look like Keith Smith if you don't trade me, and then see what you get in a deal.
Hey, come on.
Hey, I
Oh
can
no.
I can poke fun at myself. I'm good. I'm feeling
But
good, man. I'm
I
a
was gonna
happy
say, but you're
happy guy.
you're you're look you're slimming down every day, my friend.
We're working hard.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Houston Rockets beyond James Harden hanging out there in Houston.
It'd be
Apparently
funny if
the
he just started showing up at Rockets games and stuff. Like
right,
that'd be hilarious.
like in his jersey, in
That'd be
his
even
old
better,
jersey, to show
right?
up there.
With an entourage of strippers like dropping glitter all over the floor in Houston.
Now that would be true, like scheduled nonsense material right there.
Yes, perfect.
Um, the Rockets are reportedly looking at guards. Is this, in the wake of the whole Kevin Porter Jr. Situation? Now he's traded. He's with Oklahoma City. They are ultimately going to waive him. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that story and see what comes of everything going on with that. But the Rockets now looking at guards. But what's out there for them at the moment?
Yeah, it sounds like the guys that they're looking at, it's a collection of veterans that I think we've all kind of known. So it's Alec Burks, Malcolm Brogdon, and then the one that's to me a little more interesting is Taylor Horton Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently is maybe more available than I think I had heard or knew from Utah. It makes some sense, right? Utah's got a little bit of a glut of guards now. You've got Jordan Clarkson back. You got Colin Sexton. They really like Chris Dunn, who played quite well for
Yeah.
them after they picked him up. So you're starting to run into a little bit of all right, what are we going to do with all these guys? And Keontae George, who was
They have a
drafted.
glut of
So
guards that aren't the guy for them.
correct. Yeah,
You know what
none
I
of
mean?
those guys are. Yeah, none of those guys are Markkanen or Kessler or like we're building around these guys. So they're
Yeah.
all definitely tradable. And Horton Tucker, and well, really all of these guys. The important thing to note, I'll make sure is with Horton Tucker, he is, I believe, yeah,
An
he's on the
expiring
final year of
contract.
his contract. Alec Burks is on the final year of his contract, and then Brogdon has one more year left after this year. But it tells
Mhm.
me that Houston knows, or we might be a little bit light on the guard line. Fred Van Vliet and Jeff Green or Jalen Green. I'm going to do that all year long. Um, locked in as our starting guards, and that's really good, and you're going to be good with that. But then behind them, it's going to be all right. Well, we're going to give Amon Thompson some of the run here. And he's going to get some ball handling duties. And then we're kind of into guys like Aaron Holiday and
Mhm.
guys who aren't necessarily more third guard type guys. So yeah, if you could add one more veteran guard into the mix, why not? Go ahead. And now you've got Victor Oladipo plus whatever you want to put together as the tradable contracts to try to go get a guy like that. Obviously, Oladipo alone, his salary is enough to go get Horton Tucker or Burks. They don't make so much. Brogdon, you'd have to piece together probably one or two more players. But yeah, if you could throw, I don't know, Oladipo and Jayshawn Tate to the Trailblazers for Brogdon, maybe the Trailblazers are like, yeah, we get Jayshawn Tate, another defensive guy, another guy who could be a nice fit with our young rebuilding roster, and we go and we just kind of go from there. That could be something that could be done. Aggregating Oladipo, that's a 60-day thing, so
Right.
you're gonna have to wait a little because they're over the cap. But that's just kind of the options there. But it makes sense to me why Houston's interested. It seems like they're really trying to push things forward to let's really play meaningful games until I always say, if you're playing meaningful games when you're a rebuilding team into March, you've had a pretty solid season.
I'll tell you what I would do if I'm the Rockets is I'm letting the first month or two of the season play out.
Yeah.
And then seeing where I'm at. Am
Yep.
I a team that's performing a bit better than expected? That maybe, maybe you've got Fred VanVleet's doing well enough and Dylan Brooks is doing well enough to where you're somehow hanging around like the 9th seed or 8th seed or whatever it is in the West. You're in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think that incentivizes you to go get Malcolm Brogdon if you can get him, because that's a guy that you could add in and it's going to help you right now. If not, you could make it an argument for taking a flyer on Taylor Horton Tucker, which I actually don't like a little bit of overlap there between THT and Jalen Green in terms of skill set and kind of what they
it's
do.
Too much on ball. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I mean. They both need to be on the ball in their hands, that type of thing. But you could at least say, hey, he's a young player still, has some upside, and this is the kind of guy we need to target right now. We're not winning right now anyway. But if they find themselves in the mix, if they outperform their expectations, maybe that informs their decision enough to say, you know what? We put Malcolm Brogdon out there with Fred VanVleet, with Dylan Brooks, with some of these other guys that we've got, and we've got, Alperen Sengun maybe takes a leap, and next thing you know, we've got a puncher's chance here, and we're getting playoff revenue or something, or at least play in, and off we go. So that's what I'm doing if I'm Houston. I'm not making that move right now until I get a true sense of what it is that they need. If those are the primary options, if it's like a THT versus a Malcolm Brogdon, picking which path you go, I want my record to inform that decision.
Yeah, I'm in on that. I think that's really smart because I think what you were looking at a month, 2 months, whenever it was that Kevin Porter Jr. got himself in trouble. Prior to that, you were thinking, all right, our 3-guard rotation is VanVleet, Green, and Porter Jr., and then we'll work Thompson into that mix while also playing him on the wing. Now I think the idea is, all right, Thompson now slides into the Porter Jr. slot. If we need somebody else, we've got, a million forwards on this team that can play on the wing, and we'll just do that. And you're right. Yeah. If we get to Christmas or January and you're starting to be like, geez, Thompson, we just like him better on the wing than with the ball in his hands or whatever the case may be, or we're playing better and he needs a lot more reps doing that before we trust him in big games. Yeah. Then you go and make the move for the veteran guard and kind of flush out your rotation and go. And I like the idea of doing it too, because I don't think the asking price for any of those guys today is going to be astronomical, right? It's going to be, hey, throw us a, some form of draft pick and maybe a younger player who, could be something. And then we're going to kick you this guard and we'll go. I mean, it should be a lot less for a guy like Alec Burks. That screams like the traditional, like 2 seconds and matching salary type trade. Probably, you could maybe get a late first for Horton Tucker, and then Brogdon's probably the one where that'd be all right. Well, we need a little bit more, right? We need a real first or something like that, or a real young player we like. But yeah, that's something you can decide on down the line if you're Houston. So, but I like the idea of the Rockets continuing to be aggressive, as they build this out.
They need to be. Yep. All right. We talked about him yesterday. Calvin Booth made some comments that were not very GM-esque, at least not public-facing stuff, right? When he was talking about Bruce Brown, talking about Michael Porter Jr., and talking about how the me first players and Bones Highland, Bones Highland and Michael Porter Jr. both being me guys in quotes, not being guys who are going to spend a lot of focus on defense and they're going to shoot the ball a lot. They're not going to be team first players. And obviously there was a strong reaction to that. Now he's walking back those comments saying that these quotes were not for public consumption. Under no circumstances would I make or approve of those kind of comments for public consumption. That's not my character as a person or executive. Keith, you and I have both been in plenty of situations for years now where somebody says something to you, somebody who's with a team or an agent or whatever, and says, hey, this is off the record, but blah, 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 right? We've had that happen tons of times. This stuff wound up being published in a story, and it sounds like Calvin Booth is basically saying, like, hey, I didn't authorize this stuff to go in. Is this just him trying to save face, or what do you make of all of this?
Yeah, it's tough because Kevin O'Connor, who I'll admittedly hand up, is a friend of mine, and somebody I've known for years, from back when we were both doing Celtics related stuff. And we grew up at the same area. We actually went to the same college, very different times. I'm far older than Kevin is. But so this is not just me coming to his defense here, but I know if this was said, it was not said in an off the record situation. He's done this long enough to know, I'm not going to publish a bunch of off the record stuff that was said to me. Calvin Booth, and where, to be clear, where where the quote you just read about, I wouldn't make, or those wouldn't be for public consumption. He said that on ESPN2's broadcast of the Nuggets. He was Nuggets Clippers last night. So that he was on there just kind of being asked, and then he answered about that. And my thing is, did you not make those comments, or they weren't for public consumption? Because they're not both, right? Either you said it and it wasn't supposed to get out, or you didn't say it, but you got to be clear about that. And I think he's trying to save some face here. I think we talked about it yesterday. I think it was yesterday. We liked that he was so refreshingly candid. Like, it was awesome to get this stuff, but that does come with some issues. And now we're in a spot where, all right, it caused you a little bit of a problem. And, I mean, maybe, right. I don't care too much about the Bones Highland and Bruce Brown stuff beyond Bruce Brown was a big part of winning the title. Like, maybe let's be a little more respectful, but those guys are gone. So they're not a part of the Nuggets. They're probably not going to be a part of the Nuggets anytime soon. Michael Porter Jr., that's one that's a little bit harder. But on the flip side, I would hope, if you think Michael Porter Jr. was too much of a me player to have two guys that were like that, and you think he's too much of a non-defender to have two guys that were like that, I would hope he knows that, because you've already had that conversation, where it's like, hey, either one of you has to go. We decided ultimately it's Bones Highland, but just so you know, like, this is where we're at with you. And those kind of things, because that's, that's fine. That's fine feedback to know. But my guess is, this just, he doesn't like the way this came off, or more likely doesn't like the reaction to it. And now we're in a spot where it's become a story.
Yeah. That's probably really what it is. Like, if that just got overlooked and nobody made any comments about it, we didn't see it, we didn't make a show about it and all of that, then he's probably not saying anything here. Again, I have a hard time. Again, I don't know for sure exactly what happened, but like you, I have a hard time believing that Calvin Booth would have said, hey, KOC, this is off the record, but I'm going to tell you that this guy doesn't play defense, and teams are foolish for going after Bruce Brown. The things that he said. And then KOC would turn around and publish that in a story. I have a hard time believing that is what took place. Again, I don't know.
100%.
Yeah, I don't know, but that just doesn't have the ring of truth to it to me.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, people can say I'm defending a friend, and it's fine. I mean, to some extent I am, but like, I know that's not, that I just don't see that being, a thing.
Yeah. All right. Adam Silver said he wants to return the All-Star format to East versus West. And Keith, the only thing I think of is, are they ever going to settle on something? Are they ever going to figure out what it is, in quotes, with the All-Star game, to just settle on something? Because it feels like the All-Star game, it's good for a couple of years, then it stinks, and then it's okay, let's change some stuff and try to fix this, and then it's good for a couple of years, and then it stinks, and okay, let's change it. Let's go back to what we were doing before. And at what point do we just figure it out and say, okay, this is what we're doing with the All-Star game, and let's just move forward?
I maintain the game is the worst part of All-Star weekend. It holds the least amount of interest. To me, it was fun the first couple of years of drafting teams. Like that was, that was fun. They've played around with different things with that. They continually talk about USA versus the world. One of the things that they don't want to do with that is they don't want to get stuck into, what if there's only like 7 world all-stars this year. Like now we
Mm-hmm.
have to pick 12. So that's something they seem to be fairly resistant against. I'm fine if they go back to East versus West. I personally, I don't really care. I very rarely watch the All-Star game itself. I usually have it on while I do other things. But that's also like when we're in the middle of, or we've been grinding for months straight, like I'm ready to, have a little bit of time off.
Yeah.
Right. So it, becomes like that. That's the last half of that week of time off. So I don't know, man. I until they find something that everybody universally loves and pulls in tons of ratings and people think is awesome, I just think they're going to keep trying different stuff, and it is what it is.
I think ultimately it just comes down to this. There's a reason why you don't, and I'm right there with you. There's a reason why we don't really care whether or not we see the All-Star. And we do that. Like, this is our job.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't, I went on vacation last year during the All-Star break, and I caught the very end of the game, and it was a snooze fest. The reason why that is the case, though, us who love basketball probably more than 99.9% of people on this planet, why we don't care, it's because the players don't care.
Yeah.
If the players cared and they were going after each other in this game and they were playing it with intensity, we would care too. So that's the problem that needs to be addressed. And if it's East versus West, whatever it is format wise, whatever you need to do to get the players to care, if that's even important to you. And maybe it's not, maybe it's more important that you have a break in the middle of the season and you have a reset. And that's totally fine too, if you decide that is the most important thing for the league. But if you're saying, hey, we want the All-Star game to be must-watch TV, then you have to get the players to care about it. That will solve the rest of your problems. If you can get the players to care about the All-Star game. If they don't, nobody else is going to either.
Yeah. I really don't have anything to add to that portion of it. This all came out of, he did an interview with Stephen A. Smith on whatever show, First Take, I think it was, or Get Up, one of the ESPN shows. He also talked about the length of the season. And he's talked a little bit about the load management stuff that, none of their data, which I'd still love to see, supports load management or shortening the season. I have a new take. You want to hear my new?
Yeah.
I've been saying it's maybe a hot take, but it's more probably lukewarm. No more preseason games. Have training camp have training camp start at the same time. Do 2 weeks of training camp and then just start the regular season. Just go right into the regular season. You could add probably about 2 weeks to the regular season. Stretch out, eliminate even more of the back-to-backs, if not eliminate them entirely by adding 2 more weeks into the season. Everybody's still, you're not asking the players to come in any earlier because they're still coming in at the same time. These guys all come in shape. Nobody's playing their way into shape anymore in the preseason. That's been not a thing for 20, 25 years. They come in hitting the ground running.
They're not coming in smoking cigarettes like
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Trying to shed the 30 pounds they put on while they were doing their car insurance salesman job in the off season. Like that's not a thing anymore. So come in, give them 2 weeks of training camp. Then the coaches just, they get 2 full weeks to work with their roster. And then you go, because all these teams tell you every year, the first month is just about us figuring it out anyway. Well, call it what it is and figure it out, because I'm tired of watching these preseason games anyway, where it's like last night, the Celtics played the Knicks, and I'm putting that in quotations because it was like Knicks, like lower end backups. And a couple, regular guys played a little for them, but for the most part, it was, none of the Knicks regulars. Boston's done it the other way too, where they sat a bunch of their main guys. And I imagine they're playing tomorrow against Charlotte in their preseason finale. I'd be shocked if any of the starters play. Like you can get all those reps in training camp and just go, and then start it earlier, eliminate a couple back-to-backs, and off we go. So that's just, I don't know. I'm probably missing all kinds of complications with that. Well, mostly what I know I'm missing is the owners are not going to want to give up 2 or 3 or 4 more dates in a building where they can sell tickets.
Yeah, so you're losing like the Lakers had 6 preseason games this year. That's 6 games of revenue and it's not as high a revenue as a regular season game.
Yeah.
But ESPN was broadcasting those games, right? Like that's part of the factor too. But maybe that is a better middle ground. Like we've talked about, if you were to chop 10 games off the season, you would improve the overall quality of the product because you wouldn't have teams playing on the second night of a back-to-back on the road, exhausted, and the game itself suffers as a result, right? Because players are tired. So you would improve the quality of the game. But maybe rather than give up 10 regular season games, because maybe it's a lesser financial hit. And I know it's a lesser financial hit if you give up the 4 to 6 preseason, which is weird that teams have different amounts of preseason games.
Yeah. Well, remember, it used to be like 8 to 12.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy, like back in the day. So yeah. Yep.
So maybe that is a better middle ground. And then you can keep your 82 game season and you can eliminate some of the back-to-backs, improve the product on the floor, and the pinch you have to feel for losing games is, I mean, we're still talking about millions upon millions of dollars, but it's much less. And you know what? You could replace some of the program. Like, look, the NFL does great with Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Let's do, go inside training camps and let's do some stuff like that. And,
or maybe you set up, what you do is you set up regional scrimmages, but still sell tickets. But it can be like things where, a lot of times in these scrimmages, coaches will come out and be like, all right, hey, what we're going to actually do is Boston has the ball for the next 20 possessions. And you're just going to play defense and we're going to run through a bunch of different stuff. And maybe you set the Celtics up with the Raptors and the Knicks with the Nets, and then nobody really has to travel, but you can still open those up for fans to come or whatever you want to do. And, say, hey, because not everybody, but a lot of teams do an open practice, for the fans where it's, hey, open practice night, come on down to the gym or whatever. But or maybe, I don't know, start the G League roster building earlier and work against your G League team. Take your NBA guys to your G League city and actually have them play against. I mean, I know for some, like for the Lakers, their G League team plays at the practice facility.
Right.
So that's not as cool of a thing, but like the Celtics G League team is in Maine. Imagine if the Celtics actually were in Maine for, a couple days, like you could do that. There's a lot of different things you could do with this stuff where I think you still have revenue opportunities and opportunities to bring fans in without, having to have it run the way it does now.
Yeah. It's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. I like it. All right, let's finish with our scheduled nonsense. Keith, this is so crazy. It's so crazy. So the Melissa Rowland, for Fox Sports, I don't know how she found all this info. It's amazing. But apparently there was the rumor for non-Lakers fans who maybe didn't hear as much about this. There was a rumor that started up over the summer.
Hold on. And non-Taylor Swift fans that maybe just happen to be crossover fans here at the front office show. We have one at least.
You've got one. So. You've got one. You've got another one that rolls his eyes every time that she's on with Travis Kelce, and the Chiefs games get more focused on that than on the football game. But anyway, this is apparently she figured out that the rumor that Austin Reeves was dating Taylor Swift, which seemed to just pop up out of nowhere, was one of those things where you went, what? But it was like just close enough to believable that people went, okay, this is really a thing, to the point where Austin has had to address this many, many times over the summer. Like literally a couple of days ago, Darvin Ham even made a joke about it at one of his pressers. Rob Pelinka addressed it at their opening media presser
far too seriously for Rob Pelinka. But Darvin Ham treated it with the amount of seriousness it should have been treated with.
Well, Melissa Rowland, the reporter for Fox News or Fox Sports, she tracked it down and figured out that where the whole rumor, she was able to drill down and figure out that where the whole thing started, it was with a Clippers employee using his burner account on Twitter, on X, I guess I should say. And that is where the rumor started and it took off. And for this for the big reveal, the Scooby-Doo style, the mask gets pulled off, for it to be a Clippers employee, Keith, that is the epitome of chef's kiss. This is absolutely incredible. And to me, I think this is a hilarious and funny story that's what it all, this thing that the Lakers have had to address all along comes from a Clippers employee who did not do this intentionally, apparently, didn't think this was going to be a thing for the Lakers. It's actually a Lakers fan that happens to work for
Yeah,
the
which is
Clippers,
that's like the extra little bit of weirdness to it. A
right?
Clippers employee who is a Lakers fan.
Well, I'd have to
You know,
imagine if if they're working in LA, if the Clippers restrict their hiring to just Clippers fans, they're
oh
going to
yeah,
have a tough time.
sure. Yeah,
They're going to have a tough
you'd
time.
have a far more limited pool to pick from for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So that was,
the whole
but that
thing is
was
just so
funny.
absurd.
I get it. We'd have to go back story by story, but to me, it reminds me of the DeAndre Jordan chaircade, the chair barricade back in the day when people were, the emojis were flying all over X, and
And
Mark
pictures
Cuban
of
was driving around trying to find him or whatever was going on.
screenshots of emojis if you're Paul Pierce.
That's right.
Not the actual emoji itself, but a screenshot of the emoji. Which why? Who knows? I guess he's just old and doesn't know how to work his phone.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing is fun. Go read the story. Both you and I have both retweeted it. You or reposted, whatever the hell we're calling it now.
Right.
Go find it. You can find it very easily. Melissa did a really good job with it. I thought she did a good job too, keeping it lighthearted and funny because that's what it's supposed to be. And one of my favorite parts was the guy who started it all saying like how his sister is angry with him because she's a huge Swiftie.
That's right.
Which I thought was funny. You and I, Kevin, talked to Austin Reeves. Some very much understand his family and friends being like, it would have been more believable if they said he was at a golf course with her.
Yes.
Because if
he's
Austin
not a bar
Reeves
person.
Yeah, if Austin Reeves ever no shows to the Lakers, it's gonna be because he's like, I'm done with basketball. I'm just gonna golf now.
Yeah.
Like I just don't want to do this anymore. Like that would be the only reason he wouldn't be around. So but yeah, man, it really is pretty funny. Like the whole thing is just so absurd, and it all goes to show too, like how quickly people get caught up in this stuff. Like and it also goes to show, I mean, just the power that she has. Right. So I think you should lead the whole thing, thumbnails and everything with Taylor Swift. And this will probably be our most watched episode we've ever done.
Maybe we'll see. I don't know if there's a big Taylor Swift basketball fan crossover.
I don't know that does there need to be? Just be like, we talk Taylor Swift. And
I think it would if it was we talked to Taylor Swift.
Oh, well,
that would be a different story. But we talk Taylor Swift. I don't know how many of our fans would tune in for that, nor how many of her fans would do. They'd be like, "Wait, what? I don't need a basketball guy's opinion on Taylor Swift." So,
but they'll tune in anyway, and that's all we really care about at the end of the day.
They might. At that point, we would have to drop merch. At that point,
oh, for sure.
At that point,
yeah, yep.
All right, everybody.
I've been boning up on the entire Taylor Swift catalog and songbook because my daughter has me like locked in that I promised I will know the words to the songs by the time we go to the concert, roughly a year from now. Oh, so she is she's got that one controls things, right? When they say has me wrapped around her little finger, that's 100% true with that one. So
you're studying up.
I'm going to admit I don't exactly mind. I am, though. We like two different things. She likes her like ballads, and I like her more poppy, upbeat stuff. So, we come to our Swiftiness from opposite ends of the spectrum, I guess. But as long as we get there in the end, that's all that really matters.
If she ever goes metal, let me know, and then
I'll let you know.
I'll be in.
You'll know because she'll be automatically at the top of the charts because that's just how it works. Everything she touched turns to gold, man.
That's true. Yeah, including the Chiefs, their Travis Kelce jersey sales went way up and all that kind of stuff.
The movie of her concerts, now the most watched concert movie ever, and it only took one weekend. Like, yeah.
It's unbelievable. Incredible. Like I wish I could say like, oh, I totally get it. I don't get it. But
your daughter's just not old enough. That's all
what
it
is.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what, if she was the one who sang "Let It Go," I'd be like, oh, okay, okay,
there then you get it, yeah.
Because that's my world still.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Make sure you do subscribe. I can't promise Taylor Swift content every single day. Probably not going to happen, but we will talk NBA basketball every single day. So make sure you do subscribe, turn on those notifications, and tell a friend about the NBA Front Office Show. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.